morning, good evening, good night, good afternoon.
Sometimes it's easier for me to keep going than to quit.
Life is real. You know what I mean? You have to go out there and put the work in.
And if you've never been in the pit at a NASCAR race, do it.
The time you put in while no one is around will be what sets you apart when everyone is watching.
Because a lot of times you'd be like, oh yeah, that's a cool little idea. But once they really understand where you're coming from, the meaning behind it all in your heart, what you really want to accomplish, that's when people dive in. They really get on board with it.
Good morning, good evening, good night, good afternoon, whatever time you're listening in, wherever you're listening from. Shout out to my Spotify listenership, Apple and Google Podcasts, and YouTube if you're watching in. Thanks for giving me a reason to get dressed. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here. Be present and recognize that it's now, right now. Whether your right now is working, flying, running, driving, be thankful we're alive, baby. Failure can be frightening. However, as Winston Churchill reminds us, success is all about going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. This is I Will Not Lose podcast, where we set out to prove everything is learned from failure, and we must persevere and recognize it as one step closer to success. I'm your host, Tony Ortiz. Let's jump right in. An amazing set of guests with me today. I have Jonathan Emery and Giselle Quintanilla. We have a story of a podcast host who now owns the community of Life's Checkmark podcast, which started after two major shifts. You know, there's major things that'll tear a person down, and this man endured two of them at the same time. Used his podcast as an outlet for others to share, grow, learn, gain community, and has grown it to phenomenal numbers, has touched an amazing amount of people, national podcast, everywhere from overseas to national, all over the U.S., sharing stories. So I'll let him tell a bit more about that, but I wanted to introduce yourself on anything that I missed, and we can kind of jump to the beginning.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the reason.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Thanks for having me on, and Giselle as well. So for where I started, about 5 years ago, I lost my job, right? So they said, we're shutting down the doors. It was around the COVID time, and it wasn't due to COVID. It was just they were not profiting. So we were told probably September of that year, and next month or two, about 60 people walked out the door. It was a printing factory, so it was a manufacturing place, and I was in the logistics area, so in the warehouse, dealing with the trucks and stuff. So I wound up staying another 8 months. Me and a couple other guys I worked with as well, for the simple fact that we dealt with the trucks all the time. So we had to make sure everything was stripped apart and left the building. Not that we stripped everything ourselves, but we had to make sure everything was gone. So the last thing to leave was the forklifts, and then 3 of us. So to carry out for another 8 months after you saw 60 some people walk out in one day, and then slowly a few other people here and there, was kind of hard to take, right? So you put 20 years of effort, you getting up, grinding all the time, going to the same place all the time, getting to know everybody individually. It was a lot to take in. And it wasn't just that day. It was leading up to the day I left too, because now it was just a shell. And it just, this was a printing factory. So it was like 4 printers, slitters. And I know you probably don't understand everything I'm saying, but it kept going, it was pumping out, everything coming in from China and everything like that. And we're shipping over to Hershey and Dannon and all, that's the kind of customers we had to deal with. So when it got to that last minute, it's like, was it really worth it? Did I really love what I did? And I did enjoy the people. I did enjoy what I did. And, I started from the bottom, worked my way up to where I got to the position I was in. And I was okay with that. So you kind of start thinking about, what is security? What is it in a job place? There is none. So you better be doing something you really love. And, it kind of got me to where I'm kind of at today with the podcast and everything. And I had to travel that journey. So after losing the job, I didn't really know where to go as far as what to do next. I was curious. I always wanted out, not knowing that was going to be my out. And I wanted doing life insurance. Why? Because I knew the guy that set mine up, and I loved the program, the way he had to share with me, and I got to learn everything, right? And so it was different. It was commission based. It wasn't a 9 to 5. You get paid for hours. So I had to learn. I had to sit down, just like you're learning podcasting, YouTube, and all that. You had to sit down and literally do things, right?
Still am.
Yeah, we all are if we really love what we do, right? We want to stay on top of things.
Yeah.
But I learned what he had to share to sell to others, right? And so I took that information and I made YouTube videos, and it was just feeling it out, learning as I go. And I enjoyed the process of creating things. And so it was kind of new for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
It led to where I was able to make a sale within maybe 8 months thereafter I started doing that, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, if I did like 2 or 3 of these a month, I'm pretty good, with what I had as my previous job, money-wise, right? But I was starting to enjoy creating things. And little did I know at the time that things were shifting around the household. I found out that things were changing where some people, I would say, the mother of my children was not communicating with me, and it was hard to deal with, and I didn't know who to turn to. So January of the previous year, after I lost my job, I listened to a podcast, and it's still out there today. So, feel free to go check it out. It's called Dad's Edge. And I listened to it previously years because I wanted to see if I could be a better father, show up different, as a husband or whatever that was. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I listened to a few episodes here and there. And for whatever reason, here I am. I'm not working anymore. I listened to this podcast and I don't even know what the episode was about. But at the end, it was about the community that they have of men. And I reached out, not knowing why I'm reaching out. This is just the weirdest thing, but nobody's talking to me at the house. I have not the friends I would say I could turn to. I reached out to a few of them, but there's not many that you want to share all your relationship problems. Yeah, it's something I never did, right?
Especially as a man, too, if we're being honest.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We just close up. Why can you share your feelings and express to others? And this was an outlet for me. I was able to get on there, and it was a monthly fee. I never jumped on Zoom calls or anything, but I was able to connect with 4 or 5 guys. Still to this day, I never met in person, but I was able to text them, talk to them through Facebook Messenger. I was also able to call them, and they were able to listen to me and share their feedback for what they thought was going on, what they dealt with in the past too. Maybe they haven't even traveled down the path I was going down, but they were there for guidance. And they also loaded on me too. I say loaded, unloaded, right? Because I'm like, who am I? How can I show up for you when I'm going through this mess? I did have one of the guys go, "You're going to divorce." And I'm like, what? Because that's nothing I ever wanted.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course not.
It wasn't. So, and I'll tell you why, because my dad's side, they all got divorced. And then little did I know that my parents were divorced until I was the age of 19. They divorced when I was a kid, but they just decided to live with each other. But I didn't find out about that age. So that was oh, wow. So they, for whatever reason, they committed to stay together to make it work for me and my sister, just to grow up in the same house, I guess, with the same parents. But that was another reason for me not wanting to get divorced. So I always told myself never, right? And then I had to hear this from this guy. Who are you? Great guy. If I can talk to him today, I would still talk to him. We just got out of touch. But they allowed that space for me to open up, and they heard me, and it was good because I was losing myself in my head. We just sit there and we just have our thoughts, and we keep running through and through and through, and we just go crazy. Right? Thinking that we can handle it ourselves. Nobody's going to want to listen to us. And what do they know when that's not the case? Right? That got me to where I hired one of them as I call a coach. He's big into communication, relationships, trying to make the marriage last, all that kind of stuff. It was only me that wanted to participate in stuff like that, or even mention the therapist. So when you have one that doesn't want to be part of it, it's not going to work out. But I took his course. He had one on masculinity. And, you know, besides me having trouble saying it, I still did not know what that was back then. Right. And I, you know, like, I'm like, what is this? You know, now I know. Now everybody knows what it's all about. But so I went through that course with him and another guy. The other guy was just, you know, he was married, working on his marriage, and everything was fine as far as I know. But so this was 4 weeks. The first 2 weeks I was sobbing. I was a mess, not because of the program, but because of everything was still at the house. Nobody's talking, phones being used in places where it shouldn't be, stuff's not being said. It was a disaster in my eyes, right? The next 2 sessions, I was more composed. I was taking more notes. I was responding back, and he said that to me, right? You seem better. Looks like you look better as well, and everything else, right? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know. I don't know if it was that class that kind of helped me along the way, but it allowed me to learn communicating and all that kind of stuff, and I was able to pass that along, you know, through life, right? Little did I know that reaching out to this podcast with the community, these men, and this guy with the coaching program got me to a point where when the mother of my children said, you know, I want a divorce, I was able to say, okay, you know, I was done. I was tired. Right. I felt like I did all I could and not get the response back to say, let's make it work or anything like that, or what's going on. So
was it like a aha moment when that happened, or was it something that you almost had one foot out the door the whole time? Like,
for me?
Yeah. When she finally said, all right, this is it. I know you had mentioned you were going through coaching, so clearly there was like feelings that you were working through that happened before. It wasn't like all of a sudden a surprise.
Yeah.
That's what was inevitable.
Right. And I agree with that. It wasn't a surprise in a way, but again, it wasn't something I wanted to see come. And I was taught to work on yourself, focus on you. Right. And so that's the spot I think I got to before she said, okay, you know what I mean? Or I want a divorce, which would have been a 15-year marriage with the 2 kids that I have. Right. So I'm just telling you that because of how long of a marriage
I was going to ask.
You make something last. And then it just
I was going to ask.
Yeah. Then it's like, poof, yeah, it's gone. But yeah, aha moment. I want to say I was just tired. I was just done. And I don't think I would have ever said the word divorce, right? I don't know. But she said it first. She clearly had another path, you know, and found like that out or whatever that is. And so when she said it, I just said, yeah, I'm done, because I couldn't sleep at night. I lost 20 pounds. By the way, great way to lose weight if you ever want to go on a diet.
Oh, I lost 60. Trust me.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. No, as at least my listeners that will know what I went through for what I've shared or what I've shared on other podcasts and stuff. Absolutely. I mean, I had to channel energy towards running. Like I had to run my anger away, and you'll hit calorie deficit when you're that angry. So it was, you know, I've gone through transformations. I feel like it's important to remind people that even the listeners, it's ebbs and flows. Like nothing is ever a straight up journey or a straight down journey. Like even on the way down, there's little joyous moments that you can be happy for, like even in the middle of a bad day, you know? So it's good. I'll interject where I can, but you're cooking with the story.
I'm cooking, huh?
And then we'll get, and then trust me, 60% of the listeners are looking over like, okay, we're waiting for her to speak, you know, so
it's a little further in the journey there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want me to go back to where it was?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we went our own way as far as saying the word divorce. We're going our separate ways. And I wound up, you know, finding jobs and stuff. So I quit the life insurance thing. I went back to a 9 to 5. Again, you know, you're finding insurance and all that as, you know, health insurance to take care of the kids and everything. So I had to navigate what I was going to go through, and I didn't know what that was. So I had to work on myself mentally, emotionally, and then physically, spiritually, relationship wise. And I don't mean intimate. I just mean like relationships, like talking to people, listening to people.
Yeah. Attachment styles and
like everything. Right. And then business and finances. And that's the process I went through. Those are the areas I worked on that way. For me, I chose the emotional side first, because if I didn't find my mindset to be right, then I wouldn't be right for everything else. And I think that's where everybody should start. I'm not going to say that's where you want to start, but it's a good spot, right? Because then you can focus on the other areas and just take that with you. Like if I can get my mind right, I can carry that on to being more fit and working out more often. And then we're relationships, spiritual, the other areas. So
as opposed to like putting your energy into other people, or like, you mentioned your kids, your wife, you're putting into that, like everything you've mentioned so far is you for somebody else, even though you were learning the stuff on your own. Sounds like you were coming from a place of, let's be honest, society has pressure on people to provide or do stuff. Mm-hmm. You've kind of hinted and foreshadowed that you've always wanted to create something, and couldn't we all just get funded for the thing that we love to create? Like, shouldn't the virtue be like, well, look at all these people who are like, changing their lives, bettering themselves, just having something to live for, even if it's just a podcast to listen to right now as they get further in their journey. So.
Yeah. For me, I got in that grind of getting up, going to work every day, coming home, taking care of the family, the kids, and the house. And that's just how I felt like I was providing. Not knowing, I felt like, I guess, in a sense, I was losing myself, not knowing who I was, just that I was the husband, the dad, and the employee, right? Not John. That's so, but I didn't see that. I didn't feel that until everything fell apart, right? So most of the times you have to go through these life-changing events to kind of like have a wake-up call and go like, this is not where you're supposed to be. This is not where God wants you to be. So you just go ahead and you have to make that shift. Yeah.
Awesome. So at what point did the podcast come along? You kind of were joining in their podcast and you said, I'm going to do something similar, or I'm curious how that became the outlet to transform you. You know what I mean? You could be 30 pounds heavier and brown belt in jujitsu, like everybody feeds it their own way if they're going to channel into like transforming into something better. Mm-hmm. But was that like after you got your mind right, the first thing that you said I can focus on? And like, 'cause I mean, I can tell you, for me, I wanted to challenge myself. Like I could have started a podcast on anything. Still may start a podcast on something different, because I still love this. Mm-hmm. I love recording and documenting meetings and time. We're only going to get to do this once in person. You get a different person than the Facebook posts, or, who even knows if that stuff is scheduled. So you're seeing somebody's energy that might not even be when they were saying it, versus the micro expressions you get when you're speaking with someone, when you talk with them. So, trust me, with all this technology, you didn't have to come here, but this was a decision we made. And I think it's a greater piece of content.
Yeah. So for me with the podcast journey, I that year that she mentioned the word divorce, I found out, hey, there's this event coming up the following year. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I might as well just pay for these tickets. And it wasn't around podcasting, but it was a podcaster in our area. And he's been doing it now this year. It's been 10 years. And so I went out there and it was all about growth, and he had all these speakers and stuff. And I met some people I never would have met before. And it was a whole different environment for me because I never went outside my comfort zone in that way. I would have never left my previous wife and kids to go ahead and go out by myself. Right. I would have never, it was never a thought of mine. It's always like, hey, we're doing things together and we're going to navigate this life together and have these great experiences. So I went there. Spending the night in a hotel, like again by myself. I'm like, this is so weird. But meeting these people, and then I bring it up. So we had a breakfast, and it wasn't like a planned breakfast. I just went downstairs, eat breakfast, and the guy that was running the event, he was there. He's like, oh, come sit down, with us or whatever. And there's like 10 guys or whatever. So he got up eventually. A bunch of them all got up, and then there was one guy that was left. And now I know his name because I just ran into him. I didn't even say anything to him, but for as long as I could remember, I couldn't remember his name until he was at this event the other week. And so his name's Scott, and he might not even remember me, but he was like, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Start a podcast." And he said, "Do you have anything?" And I said, "Well, I have these 10 Facebook Lives where I was interviewing entrepreneurs, and I was doing that when I was doing the life insurance. And then I cut it all out because everything going on at home."
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, strip the audio and start with that." And I told him, I'm like, "That's not what I want my podcast to be." It wasn't. So I hesitated. I procrastinated. Podcrastinated is what I call it now. And
taking that. That's good.
And it took me 6 months to actually sit there and go, okay, how do I strip the audio from the video and make this a podcast? And so I did. I had 10. So I took those 10 and I launched 3 in 1 week and then 1 thereafter for the next 7 weeks, which gave me time and space to find new guests or create my own solo episodes and everything. And this is what I teach other people too that want to start a podcast, because it worked for me and it was taught to me as well. And so now you build that level of consistency. So my podcast is called Life's Checkmark, and I created it for the simple reason of people coming on, sharing their journey, just like I am here with you right now. And we just have that authentic, vulnerable conversation where they just let it all out. And I've had people come on and they go, I never told anybody else that before. Now it's out to the world, right?
Isn't that amazing?
It's good, right? And so there's a spot inside of them where they wanted to share something for so long with somebody, but somebody never gave them the space for it. And so now they opened up and now everybody can hear about it. I had one guest and she shared this experience she had at a work party, and it shut her down for many years. And she came on, she shared this with me, and that's what she said. She's like, I never told anybody. And then after we were done recording, she went ahead and told her kids or whatever, just to, hey, this is, because it's going to come out. Now she's more free about sharing it. And from what I remember, it kind of opened up her life. Everything's okay. And I can move on from this. It's amazing. So I enjoy it for that reason, but that the podcast was built for people just coming on and just sharing. And some people, they don't know how to share, right? Nobody wants to listen to them. And so I don't know about you, Tony, but I have people meet with me like 20 minutes before, not before we start recording, but just get to know each other, build that relationship part that I was talking about, that area. And then, hey, we'll record an episode sometime in the future. I think you're a good fit, etc. I do it that way. I know everybody tells me it's time consuming, but is it time consuming if you're building a relationship and you're getting to know each other? You tell me, right? I don't know.
We took maybe 15 minutes even when scheduling, just to kind of say, and I did say I don't do the whole interview type thing, but at the same time, if we can spend 15 minutes, the last thing we want to do is find out that we can't talk for more than 7 minutes. Like it's, it happens. Just maybe the passing back and forth is just awkward. Even if we're both great individual speakers, sometimes you get podcasters on and you're not used to being listened to because you're doing the listening, you're providing the hosting or the platform.
Yeah.
But I just saw so many, and it's funny because I'm in a position, my listeners know I've been lazy. I've been vocal about things like traveling and getting stuck in Austin and being backed up on work, but they're waiting for the podcast to drop. At the end of the day, it's what are we doing with this? And you kind of run into an analysis paralysis where have the website, have the guest confirmation up, but it's also like, what am I doing? Like I'm going back and listening to old episodes, and it's, how do I break the seasons up? Even if it's just something that flows and goes on from now till then, I'm reaching out to actual guests that I had conversations with, because I started this to check my mentality. It wasn't even starting to have guests. And then fast forward 3 years with nothing but guests. I haven't done a solo episode. I don't even know if I remember how to organize thoughts to fill that much space and not just parlay off what's happening. But you realize like, okay, wow, I'm in a transition, whether it be with the podcast or career, or everybody has uncertainty. So even just gravitating to things like you said, other than paper security of a job, anybody that's lost a job, or fortunately for me, I lost my first job at 19. I was part of the layoffs with Circuit City. And that was like the first time. Like, layoffs weren't a normal thing that you read about. Everybody just had a job and kept it forever. So I just never trusted having like I just, not that I haven't trusted, because I've had jobs. I just never trusted they were going to be there for me for 40 years. And, I kind of figured I'd have to adapt or learn something new. And it does bounce back to, like you said, when I'm podcasting, the time disappears and I'm documenting something, and stop worrying about all the technical stuff, and you're just creating a moment, sharing with that. Yes, it's worth the 20 minutes. Yes, it's worth the editing. Why do I want to put somebody under the pressure of recording live and say, here's a camera, here's a bunch of lights on you? It's already a lot for some people to be comfortable in. So to have you like on a spotlight, and I'll have an Emmy winner, and then next week have somebody who, maybe wrote their first book, or they're going, how does the mic, oh, I hear my voice, they're not media trained at all. You wouldn't have a platform on a TV or something like that right away for something. So when someone reaches out and says, hey, can you connect me with that guest? You don't reach out to Oprah and say, hey, I'd like to connect with her, but you can do that with podcasts, local, global level. We're still accessible to some level.
Yeah. Yeah. Podcasting is like a whole new world for people to connect with each other. All you have to do is say you have a podcast and everybody wants to be on, but nobody wants to have a podcast because of all the work we do, right?
Yes.
Yes, we do a
It's
lot
of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
But on our side, we do it because we love it for what we're doing it for, the purpose. So that's why Giselle's here. She created Lit Launch, and she just started that one. That's another one, right? So now you're adding another layer on top of everything else you're already doing. Like that takes time. It's a lot of work. So you have to be committed. You have to know why you're showing up, and hopefully, your podcast is your podcast, and hopefully it reaches that one person. If that's your goal, I mean, that's what my goal is, because that's all it takes. And so as long as it hits that one person, even if I don't know that it hits that one person, I just know in a way that it's going to touch that one at the right time. Yeah.
Well, did you ever get that person that hits you up and says, I've been listening for a while, and I just wanted to let you know I'm 12 pounds down. I started, I didn't have the courage to reach out and stuff. So it is somewhat of a purpose, and it has to have a level of care. But, whether you want to record in person, whether you want to design a logo for it, get a mug, it's like, that's the fun stuff with it. It's not geared around, how can I sell sponsorships on the left corner of this sticker and, you know what I mean, read off. We will take a break to mention sponsors at some point when it makes sense for the conversation, not because somebody's watching the timer, So podcasting allowed you to create a community. You have people now listening. You had the consistency, and I do agree with you with setting it up. I think knowing not everybody gets that buffer to say, I have some stuff to splice or have, or not everybody has, if a guest cancels, well, what do you do with that time? If you don't have multiple weeks booked out that guests are kind of piggybacking, or if you don't set the expectation that, look, I'm not going to cancel this if you don't, like, God forbid things happen. If you would have told me something comes up, it's fine. But everything's laid out and prepared for us to do this. And it'll be the same when I fill out your form and follow the process, because I'm all about process. I'm not going to messenger you to get on your podcast. It's not why you have systems set up. When I fill this out and I get onto your podcast, you're going to do the same. And we can tell a different story because they already know me. There's already 10 people this far in the episode that are on their phones that Googled, they might be washing dishes and they look up and they see the check mark, say, oh, okay, I'm going to check that out. He seems like a cool guy.
Yeah. And I'll share with you, there's a couple people in the community that are actually just starting. So I'll just shout out, Robin's working on one and Brittany Russell's working on one, and they're just getting going and just doing what I just suggested as far as just a 10 and creating the name, all that stuff. Don't even think about the camera and all that kind of stuff right now. Let's just get started, and then you can come back and not aim for perfect, but aim for doing and just take action. So, but they all came to me and I asked them, and there's more than that, but I asked them, why they're doing it, right? And it can't be for making money. In my eyes, it can't be for making money, building the audience. It's got to be deeper than that. Because when you tell me that you decide that you might shift and you might quit, why? Why'd you go back? Why'd you even start in the first place? Because then that's where you want to go back to and see if that's still in you, right? And if it's still there, then keep going, because you started for a reason. I don't know what that reason is with you, but for me, it was about reaching that one person so they know they're not alone. And I was interested to know what other people went through. Mm-hmm. To me, a lot of them went through something I don't even think I could go through. And I'm like, if they can get through that, I should be able to get through what I'm going through. Now, Tony, as a host, you listen to a lot of guests, right? And they come on and they share all this information with you. You as a host can take all that information and do whatever you want with it. So you're absorbing everything from me and Giselle at the moment.
Yeah.
Right?
So a guy that charges $350 an hour for coaching will come on and tell me all about his coaching for an hour. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's worth the editing and stuff. No, I become a conduit of everything that I pull, everything that I bring together. I tell people there's a certain level of like how it has to look just because of what I do. Mm-hmm. If you're a plumber and you start a podcast, they're going to be surprised if you have water techniques, and it's like, unless you did it yourself and that's part of the podcast, but they wouldn't expect you to have the best camera, everything like that. A lot of my podcast guests have turned into clients, and they understand, like, I do video editing full time. So there's also a matter of knowing what the value of that is if you need to outsource it. If you're making a ton of money off a podcast, you usually have a team. There's just way too much work to do on your own. So it was a creative outlet for me, but it was also, I wanted to tell a story of a musician, of a friend of mine. Shout out to Gil Thompson, my first and my 60th guest. He came back for my 2-year anniversary, but his mother had passed and he had spent his whole life writing. And that's where the I Will Not Lose podcast came from. It is a hip hop reference from Jay-Z, but it's also, look, here's a rapper who got over the death of his mother through writing, wrote a whole album, Writing to Heal, was able to go through things in alignment with therapy and put out this body of work. And I just said, we can't record it in your kitchen. This was all a mess. I cleared it out, set everything up. Little pieces like the mic get better, but we did the logo within like 2 weeks and put it together. And I said, this is one story, but it's not going to be a hip hop podcast. I've had musicians. I'm going to have another one on, who's also a repeat guest, but it needs to be able to show that the resilience, the hustle spirit, the hard knock life, like, it exists in hip hop. It exists in entrepreneurialism. It exists in art. It's cool to kind of show where somebody looks at my catalog and they're like, well, what's the consistency? Well, everybody didn't give up. Everybody found a way to have a success through a failure. And then in turn, it also reframes my mind to say, okay, maybe this isn't the end right here. Maybe this is just a low point and I have to be just as calm in the lows as I am on the highs. Like, you almost have to not get super excited. What keeps me going is the message. Hey, I see that you're putting this out. Wow, you talked to that person. Can I reach out to her? I'm a domestic survivor, violence. Hey, I realized that person got sober and I'm only 7 days. So congratulate him on his, 700th day. But I'm going to keep listening. It's all sorts of things that I could just bring up. And I don't like to make anybody's business. Like, I don't go and post their stuff, but I'm just like, man, to see that people have gone from, there was one run I had where I had a gentleman on, Cuba Fernandez, and then he won an Emmy the next week We had Ali Amac McGuire, who was a platinum award-winning audio engineer. And then I think a week or two after we scheduled Red McFly, he had the #1 produced beat on iTunes. And everybody was hitting major successes right after talking about, we just need to get there. We're just a second away. And then I'm like, oh, man. So it's been amazing how the caliber of guests has grown. And I didn't do that on purpose. I didn't plan and say, okay, we're going to do C list and then move to B list and stuff. It's just people hear of it, say, hey, what does it take to get on? I'm like, a phone call, fill out this form, and we have a conversation. And next thing you know, I'm growing with the podcast. It does get tiresome, but I wasn't going to cancel us. I was close. I was going to say, you know what? I'll just be on your podcast. You could do the work this time. But
we'll do that too sometime for sure. But I wanted to go, can we go back a little bit for what you shared about podcasting and stuff?
For sure.
So Giselle was on a podcast. If you don't mind sharing your story, how you were on a podcast and somebody else reached out to you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just introduce yourself, give some background, and then...
I got this.
Thank you.
This is Giselle, my girlfriend, and I'll leave it at that. And she can take it from here.
I'm just
that was good.
That's so funny. I am the publishing strategist at Ready Writer Services LLC. That's my business, and so I help people go from writing their books all the way through, developing the content, interior book design, publishing, and then promoting and launching their books. And one of the things that I'm passionate about is people understanding that your book is not just a book, and, that you're not going to make millions off of the book, but the book is a gateway and it opens up doors to other avenues, right? Getting on podcasts, speaking, engagements, workshops, conferences. So all those things. So I was on, oh my gosh, What the Nell? I was on What the Nell, shout out to Nell Tice, on her podcast. And that's what I talked about. I said, your book is really your business card. It gives you credibility. It gives you authority in whatever it is that you're talking about, whether it's your story that you lived or whether it's your expertise, right? So if you have a book on podcasting, you are the expert in podcasting.
They have that saying that they wrote the book on it. So it's like that came from somewhere. I think organizing knowledge into a papyrus gave you clout.
Yep. Yeah. So I was on her podcast, and I'm just talking about different ways and ideas, things that you can use your book for. Because if your book is, that might cost $20, $30 to purchase, but for an author, it only costs you like $6 to print. And so if it costs you $6 to print, but you have services that are thousands of dollars, just give the book away, right? Let people see that you are an expert in your field or whatever you're writing about. And then they can choose to continue to reach out to you, right? Or, go after whatever it is that you are providing for them. So I was on What the Nell and I was sharing that, and somebody watched the episode and she reached out to me. So Nell connected us and she reached out to me and she was like, I have a book and I know that it's meant for more. I know I'm supposed to do more. And I was like, yeah, I would love to help you, because for me, there's so much more, right? So when God gives us vision, it's not just that. It's not just, the book, or not just a podcast. And not the meaning what he's giving you, just saying there's more to it. And so It's up to us to find out what that more is. So I thought it was great, because I know John was like, that's another way that you can really display what you do is through podcasting. And it does work. And so that was really cool. That was my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to mention that just because, from my experience of reaching out to a podcast about being their community, in their community, that people are able to listen to a podcast and then become a client for somebody else. So she was able to tap in, and actually she was a guest before, right, on Nell's. And she was, and then she was listening to yours sometime. And so she reached out to Nell, right? And so she was starting to listen to Nell's podcast, I guess maybe thereafter that she was already a guest. And so now you get hooked a little bit, and now you're reaching out to other people. And, I already had her on my podcast. So it's slowly building because now she's making a network of people and growing from there. So it's just an example of how podcasting can work. Right. And, I'm sure you're the same way. I met a lot of people all around the world, literally on the other side in Tasmania. So it's incredible to see where it can take you, because you never would have met them in person here. And it allowed me to create the book, which is 20 guests. So it's an amazing, it's not even out yet, but people are from the UK and Greece, and like that would never be possible if I didn't start what I was doing. And then, I met Giselle and I met some other people that had books, and it just kind of opened up my eyes. Like, here's a way I can finally bring the guests together that I admire so much, because they come on and share a lot.
That's a great pathway to it, because if you think about it, we all start, like, a podcast is just a medium. It's just one medium for what would be your soul, your energy. It's one way for you to be a conduit. Somebody, and this is the amazing thing about humans, will latch on to one host and they'll say something that has been said for thousands of years, but they say it in a way that makes sense, that it's like, okay, we can be approachable, which is why, like, even some of my, even though I have an articulate speaking style, it's very like, I try to dumb things down. Like, I think like a computer. I build AI agents. None of that is fun. Shout out to the Nexus Network, who happily sponsored this website. If you want to learn how to build AI agents, or are an entrepreneur and want to learn where this tech is going, if you're scared of it, join the Nexus Network server. Sorry, get rid of paying the bills while we're there. I try to keep it relatable. I guess that's the word that I'm looking, because I don't like that word dumbed down. You know what I mean? There's people who speak slow that build aeronautic space combustion engines. You know what I mean? It's not a way to judge people, but do you listen to your podcasts audio? Do you watch them?
I very rarely tap into my own podcast. I'll listen to them on audio, not all the way through.
Or like, I'm talking about podcasts you follow.
Oh, it's audio for me. For me too. Mm-hmm. And it's such a personal connection to, I listen to podcasts where it's not, it's just two people. It's not even guests. And the guest episodes are almost like, okay, it's just people coming into their house. Like, it's not even about the guests. It's them coming part of the show. But I've bought the things they've suggested. I've gone the places. I know about different podcast things. You know what I mean? I met a podcaster that I follow in person, and it was cool this was before I even started my podcast. The conversation would be different if that happened now, but you have to be a conduit for the people that relate to you. The greatest knowledge might be either said in a different language or said in a way that they can't understand. Whereas you put something together in a book, it doesn't matter if that's written at a 7th grade, 12th grade, or collegiate level. It's a book. Like, it can be 70 pages. If it's printed in front of you like that and it got through, I don't care if you self-published it, whatever. Like, you went through the thought to organize, put into chapters, and put something out. That's another medium in addition to the podcast. So if your goal was building resilience, building a community, why wouldn't you allow people who gravitate to reading and not just audio? Mm-hmm. The video is because that's like, to have a podcast, everybody's like, well, what's your YouTube channel? Mm-hmm. And I'm thrifty enough to put together some cheap cameras and make a great looking podcast. So, but it's an artistic choice to do the extra. It'd be way easier to just do audio. Mm-hmm. Are you going to be audio and video for plug your podcast?
Yeah, they're both. Yeah, sure. I'm the host of the Day One podcast. So Day One is already on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. The other one is the Lit Lunch. So the Lit Lunch right now is on socials, and then next month it goes onto all the other channels.
After she has her first 10.
Yes.
That's a smart way to do it.
Yes.
I got lucky with mine. Anytime I took hiatus, it was because I needed to, it wasn't because I needed to, because I had no content to do anything. I only had to do one filler episode, And 10 minutes before, I said, well, instead of setting up all the lights, I'm just going to do cell phone straight to camera. And I don't want to say rant about how much it is to set it up, but just it was an artistic way to say, like, sometimes this is a grind. Like, sometimes you don't want to put on I don't have makeup on, but, it's your listeners deserve enough. But if they're listeners that are going to be along for the ride, they'll take a 28-minute episode that just says, look, I just can't get this 20 minutes out early enough. I haven't done that for years, but I think being able to empower other people, and as I've grown into a podcast consultant, it's because I know how empowered they can be. Like 15 years ago, if you had something on a business card, it made it real. Now everybody can get business cards. So like you need the mugs, and you need more and more to make it look real, like you're actually doing it. It's a shame, but that's cool. Any thoughts in your mind to start a different podcast that'll end?
No, I'm taking this so much further. And we could talk about that.
Yeah, I want to hear more. Like if we're at the part of the story where you have the podcast and you're helping people out. Here, tell me more about some of the people that you've encountered or just lessons you've learned from the podcasting.
Yeah, so I'll start off with, I got episode 200 coming out on Tuesday. So that's 3 years and 6 months in the making of getting to that point. And we actually came together and we recorded live in person up in New York at a studio. So that was fun. And we wanted to make it somewhat rememberable. So that would come out on Tuesday on everything, you can watch it and whatnot. The people I've had that came in, so I have a Podcasters Hub. It's a school community, and we meet once a week. We talk about all things podcasting. If they have questions, we bring it up. We just had Nell's part of it. So she just came in, she just talked about media kits. So she shared how she created a media kit. She got sponsors, and she's like, here's a template, people can watch a recording and stuff and run through it. So I created a challenge. So in 30 days from now, we'll meet again with whoever's in the group, and they can bring their media kit and share what they have. And we're not aiming for perfect. We're aiming for action and completing something. So then you can share it to the people that are asking about being a sponsor, or maybe you're going to ask somebody.
Oh man, I need one.
Yeah, see,
I literally do marketing, and I need one.
So she's like, it's a 1-pager, and then she's, it's everything about your podcast, what it's about, who you are, and then some statistics and everything, and then you'll have another thing where it's got the sheet for how much they can pay per month or whatever per episode, whatever that looks like for you and your podcast. And that was enough for her to claim a spot to have a sponsor, sponsoring her podcast, but she's over 200 now too. And so it was just a level of consistency. Again, another word that I love to use, but I can't use it. And and how she just kept showing up, like newsletters and posting on YouTube all the time and responding to comments and also being herself. So she shared how this sponsor was on her show as a guest, and then came back and hey, I have this business. Can that be a sponsor in your podcast? And then they navigated through that to see what that looked like. So yeah, people come in Podcasters Hub. They either have one, they don't have one. And we're just discussing now I use Libsyn. So it shoots out my podcast. And now they got Spotify where you can upload the video through Libsyn. Right. And then now Apple's another one on. So the only reason I use it is because other podcasters that I met at these events has said they started with it because they're one of the ones that are like ahead of the game, want to be at the top of getting in front of people to have your podcast on so many platforms. Right. So that's the only reason I started with them, and just to keep reading and hearing that they're making these moves to be one of the first ones. I'll stick with them. So it's stuff like that. So like you find something, you just share it with the community, and the conversations, they're all recorded so everybody can come back. But a lot of people are stuck, right? They don't know if they can do it. And that's the problem. So, you talked about, I think what you have here is great. It's a lot better than some other people. I don't have one camera. You got 3, you got 3, 2.
Yeah. We should have 3. Sometimes you got to improvise. And I was going to completely not bring attention to the fact that the light strip is hanging dead from the logo. I wasn't going to interrupt the conversation, and the viewers are laughing about it anyway, but it's funny because what do I have to prove? I've done stuff for global brands. Like the proposal I was writing beforehand, trust me, they won't get mistakes on it, but this has to be fun. To your point, I think all this kind of killed it. Like, people don't realize those are $60 thrifted cameras. Everything was put together piece by piece. You could go back, and I started with one camera, but people think you need to get 4K. You hang out in the new podcasters. So I was thinking of getting 3 Sony ZV-E10s for what?
Right.
Like, do you even know how it's going to come from the SD card to the computer? So I'm a video nut, and it helps me be better at my actual job. I also charge for podcast consulting, and if worse comes to worse, I'll go to one of these studios and I at least know how to operate the gear. So I'll make $15 an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's you're always going to have a hobby, but when I'm consulting, I tell people the same thing. Do you have a phone? Do you have a car?
Right.
Okay, shut the car door and get your audio. Can you sit down and sketch out? Can you say, this is what you need to say? And when I first started podcasting, I wasn't on social. And I found that I had a lot more to say when you have to write it down on a piece of paper and organize it and say what fits within an hour and how is this going to flow and think about it. And you can get into the zone and do a solo episode, but it's not going to be the same as just hitting the mic on. People think this is just turning on the mic and talking.
Right.
And those are the worst podcasts. You're like, how long is this? When are they going to like pull some callbacks to, how are you faring with creating things now? Do you still feel that itch to create is like manifesting itself in different forms, like the book?
Oh yeah. Yeah. This was something. So when I hit episode 52, I was at this event and somebody mentioned about a book, 52 Cars, right? And I'm like, 52. I'm like, that's great. That's perfect. I'm at episode 52. What if everybody was part of a book each episode? Well, that was like, 2 years ago or whatever. So it never happened. But it got me to a place where I kept thinking, how can I bring guests together? And that's always something I wanted to explore and make happen. So I thought retreats. Like, I've been to some retreats and they were amazing. But then what are my guests coming to talk about? Their separate business or whatever that is. It didn't make sense. So I never went down that platform yet. We'll see. Maybe there is something there. But when I went to Emilio's event, I was in his book, and so he's the forward for my book now. And he had the format. I saw it, and then I just I just put it together where I think I can make this work with the podcast guests I have. So it allowed me to get to a point where I got 20 guests in here sharing. So they come on my podcast, share the part of their journey, right? And we just might go down a rabbit hole. Well, now I tell them, I said, in this, you guys can share something different. And some of them are sharing things that I don't even know if they shared other people. Now she put it together. So she read everything. So
that's amazing.
So they go deep, right? And now it's linked back to their episode as well. So there's a way that they can go ahead and listen and watch the podcast. So now they can, okay, I read about this part of their lives, and now I can listen to this part of their life as well.
That's so cool.
So I really want to take this, after this launches on June 6th, we'll do a virtual summit where everybody's going to be able to talk more in depth about their journey, whatever that is. I don't know yet. We'll make it happen. And then I also want to try and take this to stage so these people can actually become speakers if they want to speak as well. Because there's a good handful of people that have never written before. They don't have a book. They've never written a chapter before. And so they're very proud of what they've done. And I'm proud of them for doing what they're doing, taking that level of commitment and stepping up. And if they want to be part of something bigger where we can be in front of people and like this, we have the emotions, the feelings, everything's going on in front of us right now. Then I want to create that space for a speaking opportunity. Where, I don't know, but that's where I'm going with it. So
you sound like a person that, just from the name, life's checkmark. You're very goal setting. Was that something you picked up from the, the focus groups you were doing or like the coaching?
I I guess so. There was one I started going through after the fact of everything happening with the divorce and stuff, and just for the simple of being better, right? As far as and I'm not very good at my calendar or anything like that, time and everything. That's always been a disaster of mine, but it seems to work. And but going through that, I was able to connect with different people. I was able to work things out, and I can still connect with them today and go, remember when we went through that program together? And I'm like, what's this? And they might say, oh yeah, I did this. And you could still, okay, I can apply it. Like, was it, boy, I'm not going to, I know there's, so I did a Darren Hardy course, and I know he's got the salami method, and I think it's box and shelf method, which I really like now because of everything I have going on in my head that I'm trying to create. I can say, okay, here's this book. All right, we're pretty much like this book's done almost as far as being published, and then we can share everything else out. What's the next one look like? Right. So so now I got that in a box, and so it's going to sit here, but now I'm going to put it on the shelf. And then I can bring it down whenever I'm ready to work on it again. Because if I'm going to take this to a speaking opportunity, that's another box. So I liked how
I like that one.
Yeah, I liked how
I haven't tapped into Darren Hardy in a while.
Yeah,
that's a great one.
It's been plenty of years for me, but I bought the one course he had, and so and that's how I met a lot of great people. And I'll just share it with whoever is listening and watching this, that when you're part of something and you all paid for something, I stepped up because I saw somebody else do this in that same network, and I was like, it was 12 modules. I said, let's go through each module together, right? So 20 people were, I'll be there, and people fell off as we kept going. But if you showed up once a month or once a week, and then you go through the module together, and you come back and you go, okay, this is what I learned, and then you can apply it to your life, and then you can go ahead and go through the next one. That's what I did with a good group of people. Me and another guy kind of ran it, but then he let me be like the leader, even though he's a leadership coach. Yeah. Great guy. Hopefully everything's still going well with him. And I think there's probably a good 5 or 6 that I'm still in contact with here and there.
Well, let's be honest. If you're going to pay, whether it's $500, $1,200 or $4,000 for coaching, you're going to those are going to be similar minded people. Like it's not like you're meeting them on vacation where, somebody spending that on vacation may not even want to talk about business. Like, I think it just sets a different level of precedence for, because I have flown to Atlanta to go to a convention to meet somebody I've done a mastermind with. I wouldn't do that with somebody randomly off Instagram. I wouldn't say, okay, we're good, but I know you invested in this. You were at a similar part in scaling, or if it's like something with podcasts. And now that I'm ready and revitalized, I can tap into your stuff that you have. And maybe it becomes the sort of thing that I say, okay, when you are running the panel and doing everything, let me just run all the technical and make sure everybody's calm and doesn't have to worry about it. And that's how I can be a part of it. If I'm better at that than the speaking or whatever. If we're building this whole ship and putting it up together, we want the captain doing the captain things and the swabby doing the swabby things. But I did want to get to, before we land the plane, how did you guys meet?
It's a good question. And she loves to share this story, so I'm going to let her share this story.
Yeah.
Of course you are.
Yes, I am. We'll take the spotlight.
All right. Well, last year, August, we went to our friend Emilio, who wrote the foreword for the book. He was having a mastermind and he was launching an anthology that he had created and John was in. And so Amelia and I have known each other for 6 years. He and his wife, they're amazing. And we had, I went over their house and he's like, I want to go and have this meeting with people who are going to be at the event. Now, I had told him for weeks that I was not going to be at this event because I had a training to go to in Newark, New Jersey. So I'm like, I have to go to Newark, New Jersey. I don't know that I'm going to be there. I can't be there Saturday. It's a 2-day event. I said, I might be there Friday, but I really doubt it. So he's like, well, just come over. It's okay. And then he's come and we're at the table and he's like, so Giselle, you can do. And I'm looking at him like, I told you, I don't think I was going to make this event. So long story short, Thursday night, because it was a Friday, Thursday night, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to go to the training. I'll just go to the event. It's fine. I want to honor them. And that's one thing that I do love about John and myself, that we are big on honoring people, right, in our journeys. And so I was like, I'm going to honor them. I'm going to go to this event. So we're in Gloucester City, New Jersey. It's not far from where I live. And I'm in the parking lot and I'm like, okay, God, I'm going in this event. Now, I as much as I love talking to people, I am an ambivert, and my core is introvert. So I have to really put effort to be extroverted. And so I'm sitting in the parking lot like, okay, now I got to talk to a bunch of people, getting my mind right. Okay, God, whoever you want me to meet. And I'm really about networking, growing my business, growing relationships. So I go in and, we're just there, and Emilio's having everybody do their introductions. And when we get to the food, so we're eating, he's like, I hear, you have to talk to John because he'll help you with your podcasting, and you have to talk to Giselle because she'll do your book. So I turn around, I'm eating. I turn around, I'm like, let me put my plate down and now talk to this young lady, right? He was talking to a young lady. And so John starts talking to the young lady about her podcasting, and he's just doing his thing because he's super passionate about podcasting. And I waited, and then I talked to her about her book. So when she turns around and to walk away, I said, hey, Jonathan. I said, Jonathan, I don't think you and I have formally met. We run in the same circles. We're in all the same networking circles on Facebook, but we had never actually formally met. So he's like, no, I don't think we did. And so we started talking, but it was really loud in the room of the restaurant. So he says, all right, well, do you want to go out there and talk a little bit? Because we couldn't hear. And I was telling him about my podcast show that I had a show. So we went out to the outside of the part of the restaurant, and we just sat at a table and we were talking. We talked for like an hour. It was over an hour. So we were talking about podcasting. We're talking about, I'm asking him all questions about audio, because that's always my biggest thing, is like, how do I fix my audio? So he's giving me everything literally that he shares. He's so consistent in when he shares about how to start your podcast, or, what works, what doesn't work. And then we started getting into kids, and we were just talking about life. And so my show at the time was called Single in These Streets because it was about dating. So I was telling him the purpose of the show, because he was like, I don't get it. And I'm like, oh, it's a show about dating, especially when you're a believer. If you're single and you're saved, it's extra hard to date. So there's all kinds of craziness going on. But so it was just funny, and we just kept talking. So our friends kept walking by, looking at us, and we thought nothing of it. So after that, we had our one-on-one, and we were talking. I came back from a cruise. I was telling him about Canada, because one thing about me, it's not ever just business. It's just everything else that comes with business, right? So I love telling you about life. And so we talked for like 2.5 hours, I think. And then all our friends were like, we knew it. We told y'all. It took us like a couple months though.
Yeah, it was about 3 months.
It was about 3 months. Yeah, because we were like, we're just friends.
Yeah, and not just that, but like, it was funny. I had somebody say to me just the other day that you don't have to feel bad about divorce because nobody gets it right the first time. And this was an older gentleman, like 70 something. And it was just like, oh man, because like you say, this is the way that I don't want to do. I didn't want to have stepchildren. That was like one thing I was like, but it happens. Like, I can understand you taking time and not just like jumping into, okay, we had a great conversation. So that's super cool. But it's great that you have passions or interests where you said like, you're not great with the scheduling, and you handle the publishing and the putting together. So that is super cool.
Yeah, I would say we definitely complement each other.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you think you had to do building of your own to like be on enough of a level or a pedestal or a confidence, like to dating? Is your first relationship since?
There was a minor one prior afterwards. But it was no, it wasn't my focus at the time, right? And
Makes sense.
I even told her that. So yeah, it was like, this is what I've been doing. I want to keep going. I don't want to stop. I don't know where it's going to. Okay. Oh, we got to chime in here. Hold on. Let's back it up a little bit.
No, because it was funny. Because I was telling him about the show, Single in These Streets, he was like, I'm not looking to date anybody. Right. And I looked at him like, me either. I'm not trying to connect here. I'm just telling you about my podcast. So.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. No, it's funny. With a podcast title, you have like so much to get across to say what it is. It's like traditional podcasting has been around for so long, but the idea of having to have a video podcast or having to show your roadcaster on the screen, it's so funny. I'm became like Marcellus Duchamp, where he was an artist. He had a museum. He had great pieces, but he thought art, like he just would put stuff out and have people gawk over it and be like, they're so stupid arguing over what the meaning of this is. There's no meaning. It's a toilet. I just found a cracked toilet and put it on a pedestal, and I'm laughing at socialites go and do stuff. But like you said, I think if anything people would take from it, whether it's part of your journey to grow, whether you become a conduit, we just pretty much sold at least one person. Between you share this and who hears it, one person is going to say, I want that. I want to start a podcast. I want to go put something together, see where it's at, and I do need to start celebrating some wins that we have. It became for me, and we'll talk a little more off my listeners don't need to hear all that, but it became something where when there's like at one point I've almost been needing to drop every week because there's so much and the things are done and I have 3 ready to go. But then sometimes it's like, okay, something will fall off with the format. And that's like why I don't care. I'm not going to say, oh, wait, guys, stop. We got to run it back from the beginning, or a little noise. It's like you just edit it out and post. Mm-hmm. But getting all that stuff first, the safety, the being able to be consistent with something in order to grow it and say, this is the other thing that we turn it into a book. Because I've thought about all that sort of stuff. I think that I Will Not Lose resonates with everyone, where they say, if you're not going to give up, you have to make the decision that you're not going to lose. And if you have to reframe what loss looks like completely because you just can't hit that target you were going for, that's cool. And I want my listeners to see that all of that is relatable, regardless of color, creed, where you're at in business. You come across some really cool people, and podcasting is something that everyone wishes they could do. So like, if you're going to get into it, consult with people and know the reward is so great compared to like the work that you put into it. Shout out to Ron Speakman of Fed Up Podcast. He is a podcast for federal employees, and he goes over workplace, harsh workplace environments, things like that. And he made a outlet for people to complain about wrongdoing and stuff. Grew it to 50,000 plus listeners in the first couple of months. And he knew that he couldn't, because I do this profession, like I couldn't be his producer full time. He hires me for contract stuff. Now we have a new podcast coming out that's less negative. It's allowing him to channel more into his spiritual stuff. So I'm super excited about that. It's going to be called Elevate or Break. So that'll be coming on. If you wanted to shout out, you had mentioned 2 women starting podcasts. Mm-hmm. If you want to shout some people out, it might be another week or 2 until this drops. So we're going to, in the meantime, maybe they'll have it out. Your podcast for your 200th episode will have dropped. So just kind of plug your stuff, go from there, and then.
Yeah, so you can listen to Life's Checkmark, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. I will say on YouTube, I don't have an intro, outro. You're just going to get it as it is. I do not go in and edit our interviews. I let the ums, the ahs, everything just drop. So that's why I'm looking for authenticity when we just do this. You may even see my dog walking around, who knows. Yeah. But yeah, go check them out. Vanessa will be episode 200. She was episode 100 as well. So she kind of recaps her journey between episode 100 and 200 and how she's helping other people in a different way. And again, we did that one in person. So, watching that on YouTube would be definitely well worth it if you wanted to. As far as the Podcasters Hub, you can go to lifescheckmark.com. You can find out more about that. We're on School. That's where the community is. You can just look up Podcasters Hub, and they can become a member there. And then as far as the book goes, that'll be available June 6th. We will be doing a virtual book launch, which I can share with you the link when we get all that, because everybody's welcome to watch it. And I would love for everybody to share it out as much as possible.
Yeah.
So it'll be on YouTube, Facebook, everywhere we can put it. And the idea is just for people to show up and just know that these people put their heart into these chapters, and that, you know, maybe getting this book is good for you, or it's good for a relative you have, a friend you have, you know, I don't know. But definitely get it and read about it. And again, if you go back and just listen to their episodes, the people that are in this, it's well worth it right there. And then you can go ahead and purchase a book. And then, like I said, we'll talk about the date for the virtual summit, where it's going to be a lot bigger. It's a day or two event, and where people can chime in more. So a lot of things are coming. I do podcast coaching too. So a one-on-one, not just the hub where it's a community, but so there's that involved too. And they could always just reach out to me. They can ask you for my info, and I can give that all to you for the show notes and stuff. But yeah, I'm grateful for where I am currently at with the podcast. I'm grateful for where I am in my life. Grateful for my kids, Giselle, everybody that I've connected with, network wise, that's got me to this point, right? Whether we stumbled along in the path, our paths, and it just didn't work out somewhere along the way. Gordon Burdecki, that has been my fitness trainer, like 3 years ago, and got me to where I felt more better about myself physically.
Yeah.
And mentally too. And he'll tell you the same thing, right? But now he's got a podcast too, Unleash the Ultimate You, after his book. And I since I bring a book up again, Courtney Hancock, she was on my podcast back in January, and she started her podcast just on a phone in a van when the kids are dropped off doing their soccer, whatever it is, preparing that when her book was coming out. So she was reading part of her book, expanding on it, or she might share something about her day. And I'm just sharing, like, that's just all it is. That's how simple it is. You mentioned a phone in the car, and that's all it was. It's audio, right? You don't have to have this video. Podcast was meant for audio. It's always going to be that. It's just these big names and everything just drove it up to be what it is. And so it's good. I also want to mention too, Tony, that you're to me, you're building a legacy for everybody that comes after you, right? So my kids, they're 16 and 13, so they'll watch here and there, they'll listen here and there. But later on in life, when something might happen, they might dive into it deeper, or even their kids. I have no idea, right?
I've had my son on as a guest.
Have you?
I'm going to have him again. We talked about Andrew Tate, and I felt it was a conversation since the whole misogyny and red pill stuff was starting to have a conversation with him that we can go back and look at, because he's going to be influenced by that stuff. But that sort of freedom in creating it, and we'll talk more off mic. Maybe I just need to maybe you can allow consistency, but still have, like you said, authenticity. You know what I mean? I don't think this feels fake. I think it does a good job of having its audience and being real enough, where even though we have the banner and the curtains and stuff, it's not pristine. It's not, I've seen the level of 3 lights on each person, and you don't have as much time, or, I started to say, hey, we're going we are going to start to land the plane soon, but we at least got the important stuff rolled off. So we have to kind of end it. Everybody knows who you guys are, why you came on. I mean, we could obviously go for 2 hours, and I think it's funny. I'll show you the messages that we had with John. He said, if there's anything I could do to help you keep doing your podcast? Because I kind of let him know I'm either going to take a break from podcasting completely for a while, or focus on another project that I want to do. And it may just be as simple as changing the banner, but what are the rules? Do I drop to once a month? I mean, that's what I've pretty much been doing at any time. Do I go back to once a week, and while I have all the stuff, go back to setting up that sort of rigorous recording? I tried the multiple people in one day, not doing that. It's just so much energy to put into getting ready and getting everything ready for recording a conversation, which you guys nailed. I think you guys sound great. I think anybody listening to this audio wise is winning. Anybody audio wise listening, we have a simple desk with John's book, Life's Checkmark, Inspiring Journeys Beyond Life's Expected Path. It's got the orange cover and a group of, looks like about 8 silhouettes standing in a valley with the sun above them. And knowing that just hearing you speak on typesetting and what you do with the psychology of the book, I'm interested just in what it all means. But this has been one other episode, just fighting the journey of letting people know they can be empowered, shooting for resilience, and letting people know, like, you know, we don't have all the answers. We just have a path and a journey. If you want to last on to ours as hosts, follow what we do. We thank you for your investment in listening, even if there's no monetary donation or anything like that. We're creating something for you. Be sure to check out Life's Checkmark podcast. Do we want them checking out Single in the Streets, or is that shut down, right? You haven't recorded anymore.
No more. No more.
You can't even go and see the past episodes of Single in the Streets.
You could actually watch the past episodes on YouTube. That's how you land yourself and John.
Yeah, definitely. No, hey, listen, you'll probably end up consulting someone on, listen, and I just want to be able to explain all these things. Because other than that, it's like even if I wasn't single, my friends who are, you know, I'm pushing 40, my female friends who are single, I'll just see the stuff that they post about how, like, whether it's the Facebook dating app or this dating app, they said that's like the Craigslist.
Trash. Trash it all.
It's like, oh man, I miss that whole
tell
phase.
your friends to check it out. I'm telling you, our episode, I did it with my friend Toya, and me and Toya, that's what we did. It started, I'm going to say real quick, it started on the phone. We would call each other and be like, this guy said, or this guy did, or this is what happened here. I'm like, we need to tell people what's going on out there, because I don't think people know this dating scene is weird.
But check us out. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening in. Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of I Will Not Lose podcast. To support the show, visit iwillnotlosepodcast.com. You can subscribe to your favorite podcast player, share the episode link, leave a comment. Your contribution is greatly appreciated. And if you're listening in and can't see the QR code for donation, go to tothedesigner.com/links, and there's instructions to donate up there. Thanks so much.